Okay, raise your hand if last night for Halloween you went dressed as Lazarus. No? Oh, it would have been a great costume. Wrapped in all that cloth, your hands, your feet, your face. It would have been a really scary costume. And it says that he really didn't smell very good either, so you might have had to find something to roll in first as far as to really get the full effect, so that people you were visiting could smell you coming. It would have been a truly awesome experience. In the Gospel reading for this All Saints' Day, we have the story of Lazarus. And I know for us Episcopalians, we're on our lectionary, before we switched to the Revised Common Lectionary, year after year we heard the Beatitudes in this spot. So connecting Lazarus up with All Saints' Day is an interesting prospect, I think. But I find the connection very clearly by looking at the story through the lens of Celtic spirituality. So I'd like to say a little bit about Celtic spirituality and how it puts life and death as two things that are very, very close together. And the Celtic festival of Samhain, which is the festival that covers the days of Halloween, what we know as Halloween, All Saints' Day, and All Souls' Day. We'll look at that and then come back to the story of Lazarus. Now, this description of Samhain, which is Gaelic for summer's end, comes from All Saints Church in Brookline, Massachusetts, which prides themselves as having a real base for Celtic spirituality, and I commend that website to you. November 1st, the Celtic feast of Samhain, was the most important of the ancient Celtic feasts. Celts honored the opposing balance of intertwining forces of existence, darkness and light, night and day, cold and heat, death and life. The Celtic year was divided into just two seasons, the light and the dark, celebrating the light at Beltane on May 1st and the dark Samhain on November 1st. Therefore, the Feast of Samhain marks one of the two great doorways of the Celtic year, and some believe that Samhain was the more important of the two festivals since it marked the beginning of the new dark light cycle. You see, the Celts observed the procession of time as moving from darkness to light because they understood that in the dark silence, that is where the whisperings of new beginnings, the stirring of seeds in the ground took place. So the Celtic year began with the dark winter and ended with the harvest. Celtic Day, likewise, began at dusk, beginning of the dark and cold night, and ended with the following dusk at the end of the day of light and warmth. And since dusk is the beginning then of the Celtic Day, Samhain begins at dusk on October 31st. Samhain marks the beginning of that Celtic winter as well as the Celtic New Year. Whereas Beltane, the May festival, welcomed in the summer light with joyous celebrations and dawn, the most magically potent time for Samhain then was night. For the eve of Samhain was this very important part of the celebration. Villagers gathered the best of the autumn harvest. They slaughtered cattle for the feast. The focus of each village's festivities was a huge bonfire. Villagers cast the bones of the slaughtered cattle upon the flames. Thus it was a bone fire, and thus we get the word bonfire. Personal prayers in the form of objects symbolizing the wishes and hopes of the applicants, or perhaps ailments that needed to be healed, were cast into the fire. Many sacrifices and gifts were offered up in thanksgiving for the harvest. And with the great bonfire roaring away, the villagers extinguished all other fires and lights that they had. And each family then solemnly lit their heart from the one great common fire, bonding all families of the village together. As they received the flame that marked this time of beginnings, people surely felt a sense of kindling of new dreams, projects, hopes for the year to come, the start of their new year, the start of new life. The Celts understood that the gods drew near to earth at Samhain, as at all times, all these important times of the year. The Celts believed that the Eve of Samhain was an especially holy time when the boundaries between our world and the other world were broken, and the dead could return to places that they had inhabited. Many rituals of the night, I shall name just a few, but they all involve hospitality for dead ancestors. Celts put out food and drink for the dead with great ceremony. They left their windows, doors, and gates open to allow the spirits free passage into their homes. And swarms of spirits poured into our world on November Eve, as they thought, but not all of the spirits were friendly. So Celts carved the images of spirit guardians into turnips and set these jack-o'-lanterns before the doors to keep out unwelcome visitors from the other world. There was also a lighthearted side to the Celtic New Year rituals. Young people would put on strange disguises and roam around the countryside pretending to be the returning dead or spirits from the other world. This break in reality was an opportunity to turn things upside down. So boys and girls put on each other's clothes and would generally flout convention by boisterous behavior and by playing tricks on elders. I understand a fair amount of this went on in Georgetown last night. Whole blocks were carved out for the affair. Well, you can see how we got to where we are today with Halloween and All Saints' Day. This proximity of death and life, the liminal moment, the thin place. Now, as Christians, we celebrate, of course, those who have gone before us at this time. We celebrate the everyday saints, and we celebrate the great saints. We honor all the saints. And for all of us who have been baptized into the new life in Jesus Christ, we are all saints. So while we commemorate the dead on this day, we also commemorate life. And so that is why we have a baptism, our initiation of new life into Jesus Christ. And we will welcome Jennifer Sutherland into our midst as part of this congregation. Now, back to Lazarus. The story of Lazarus is, of course, the ultimate healing story and prefigures the resurrection. But I think importantly for us on this occasion, it blurs the boundaries of life and death. The understanding at the time of Lazarus was that the soul hovered near the body for several days after death and then departed. Lazarus had been dead for 4 days. So was his soul still there? Was he fully dead? Does that even matter? What matters is that Jesus was there, and he wept for his friend. And then what did he do? He prayed. He praised to God and even told God and us why he wanted the miracle of new life to happen. He wanted people to see and understand that he is God's Son. He wanted everyone to have the experience of sight and comprehension that Bartimaeus had in last week's gospel text. Then Jesus called to Lazarus. Lazarus, come out. Lazarus came out. Imagine Jesus saying this to you. Maybe Jesus is shouting, or maybe he's just whispering in your ear. Come out. Come out from the dead place where you are. Know that there is but a thin line between the death you are experiencing and the life that he is offering. Come across that line. Celebrate around the bonfire. It may be dark for you now, but you can take the light of that fire and use it to illuminate your own home and to light your own heart. Come out. Come out today. Come out from a lonely place to where the community is gathered. This day, in joyous celebration of the fruits of our labors. Come out. Join the saints and be one too.